Andrew, thank you for your time. A little bit of movement from the Victorian Premier today. It was a crab walk away from COVID zero, but he still kept COVID zero in his rhetoric. He's been attacking the New South Wales Premier, says she hasn't gone hard enough. But his 7-day lockdown is now into its 5th week. I don't think lockdowns have saved him. I think COVID zero is very tough with Delta. How do you see this playing out? Because tomorrow he says there'll be more restrictions being eased in Victoria. I suspect it won't be more than the curfew and the playgrounds, but neither of those two things were backed in by health advice. So I can't see Victorians getting any relief here until they get to 80% vaccination rates.
Well, I've long held the view, or for a few weeks at least, Peter, that New South Wales and the ACT will likely come out of lockdown when Victoria and the ACT will most likely come out of lockdown when New South Wales does. And that's for the reason you speak of. They have zero COVID policies and they're not going to get there, and Delta's just so transmissible. So the difference is New South Wales, Sydney, there's a lot more strain on the hospital system because they still have low double dose vaccination. There's a concentration in the western suburbs and there's just a lot more cases. So therefore you're getting more hospitalisations, a lot more. So, but generally, he's just going to have to, Daniel Andrews, live with COVID. And I think you can see that. Even, he's not saying it outright, but he's getting there. And that will mean a gradual unwinding of restrictions. And Scott Morrison and Gladys Berejiklian have both been talking now about a national but safe plan, which means definitely out of lockdown at 70-80%, but a slow unwinding of restrictions, probably similar to what we saw in the UK. But ultimately next year there's going to be a lot more deaths from COVID in Australia, and that's an unfortunate reality that we're all going to have to face.
Yeah, but there's deaths in Australia every given day. There's death from the flu. It's just, are we managing them in a sort of a routine, ordinary death rate way, or is it an overwhelming system under pressure pandemic?
Exactly.
I don't think we're there now anymore. But I guess the big issue for Victoria is the vaccine rollout, because it's going gangbusters in New South Wales today. 2/3 of all adults have had at least one jab. Your 70% threshold apparently will come at the end of this week. The issue is, how can you lift it in Victoria and other states where, large economies are completely shut down? 500,000 of additional Pfizer doses came today from Singapore. You've done some pretty canny analysis of what these drops of vaccination over coming months, the arrival of doses from overseas, looks like to get us through to Christmas. Take us through those numbers.
It's just extraordinary, Peter. Basically, we've had 19 million doses so far, which is about 10 million AstraZeneca, 9 million Pfizer. And in the last 3 months of the year, October, November, December, we're going to have 27 million Pfizer coming and 9 million Moderna. So twice the number we've done so far in 3 months. So imagine how much better a position Scott Morrison would be in politically, and the nation would be in terms of the lockdowns, if they had have come in this quarter, in the June to September quarter. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty unfortunate for the PM, and I think it explains why he's hitting the phones pretty hard to try and get doses from elsewhere before those orders come at the start of October. You got 4.3 million coming in September as well. And you've seen in New South Wales where there's basically a crisis, even in those hotspot LGAs, they've been made to space out their doses of Pfizer 8 weeks. And so that's the cause of some consternation and sort of highlights the problem with supply at the moment. So the good news is it's coming. The good news is they're already planning for boosters next year. But the bad news is it's almost coming to, well, it's certainly coming too late in terms of these lockdowns and so forth.
He'll be banking on, though, mate.
Go on.
I think he'll be banking on, once these arrive, get them into arms, get people to Christmas. The country shuts down generally in January, and he will be hoping, a bit like last year. I think even Victorians forgot about COVID over January. He will be hoping that people will forget about COVID, they'll forget about the messy rollout, they'll be safe come Australia Day when everything winds up again. And of course, that's when he starts thinking about calling an election. Now, I don't think it'll be then. I think it'll be likely to be May, but he needs to clear the decks this side of Christmas, doesn't he?
Yeah, I've got pretty good intelligence. They're looking at May with March as an option as well. but he's just hostage to so many uncertainties. I mean, I can't remember a time. Normally, you can plan pretty well as a PM or opposition leader for what's going to occur, and you can even strategise various moves to assist you. He's not. I mean, I think Christmas is a good thing for you to raise, because the mood of people at Christmas could have a big determination on how it comes together.
Oh, absolutely.
And there's every indication there'll be state border closures at Christmas unless there's outbreaks in those other states, and people are going to be annoyed about that. What if there have to be local lockdowns in various regional centres because they don't have the hospital system? What if, I almost don't want to say this out loud, southwestern Sydney is so bad that that particular area, or western Sydney, still has to be locked down while the rest of Sydney roams free? So there's all those. And in fact, what if there are outbreaks in WA and Queensland and they're premiers who like a lockdown, and that has to occur, and that populace gets really annoyed? So, but you're right. What you say he is hoping for is exactly what he's hoping for. He's hoping people forget that the vaccine happens, that we all breathe a sigh of relief, that they look at the other guy and say, well, is he really up to it? This guy's experienced, and they vote for him. But I'll tell you what, at the start of June, I thought Scott Morrison was increasing his majority by 5 or 6 seats, Peter. Now I reckon he'd be happy with a hung parliament victory, frankly.
Well, and look at the seats, look at the states where the seats that matter. You know, in New South Wales, he's got a hold, but he's got a positive relationship. Gladys Berejiklian. Queensland's tough ask. He's got a difficult relationship with the Premier there, and she's a lockdown Premier. WA's the same, and it's annihilation there for the Liberal Party at a state level. And obviously Victoria is difficult. And I don't think any of those 3 aforementioned Labor states are going to get a bend over backwards to help Scott Morrison. So I think it's going to be a very, very interesting lead up to the campaign, and I'm with you. I'll put my money on May. Andrew Clennell, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Peter.